Disclaimer, the following video was recorded in late January to early February of 2025, meaning that the creator's opinions are subject to change in the time between this video's release and the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in April. Note that the title will also be subject to change depending on how many of these things I get right. So with that said, let's get started. Hey guys, it's me again. As of this recording, it's been about a week since the Nintendo Switch 2 was nonchalantly revealed to the public for the first time, and with it comes speculation. So I thought it would be fun to dust off the old speculation cap and take a look at what games and basic features will likely be available for the Switch 2 once it's properly spoken about in April. So, with that said, let's stop wasting time, and here we go! Starting things off, we have Nintendo Switch Online. Now I'm gonna admit, I've never been a staunch supporter of the whole service. I mean, Nintendo's online functionality gets a lot of flack from people on multiplayer games and servers, and I've just never been a fan of the idea of Nintendo games, especially their retro library, being locked behind a paywall, and that's not even talking about what it means for video game preservation. But personal biases aside, Nintendo Switch Online is incredibly popular, and I don't see it going anywhere for many console generations to come. The same can be said for the Mii Maker and the eShop. Now, the Mii Maker is pretty arbitrary. I mean, of course they include it. The Miis are still pretty popular, even if the Mii Maker application isn't available on the home screen, and the Mii Maker itself feels kinda drab in recent years. And the eShop, I kinda have mixed opinions on it. The Switch's eShop is absolute crap. Everyone has said it, and I mean, I agree with them. Like, it's so much harder to navigate everything, and while I don't necessarily think that adding back Virtual Console would have been a good idea, the removal of it kind of feels like a huge chunk has just been ripped out. But otherwise, Nintendo Switch eShop still had a good selection of indie titles to choose from. Admittedly though, there are stronger systems that would be able to run those same games a lot easier, especially since the Nintendo Switch doesn't exactly have the best storage, and some of those games can take up a lot of space. But other than that, I'd say we're done talking about the major features, though the only other real minor feature I could think of being like NFC support, like Amiibo, but that's probably a given as well, even though I feel like Amiibo are slowly becoming less popular. But it means we can get to the meat of things, and the stuff that everyone's probably talking about right now, the games. And so, let's get started with the third-party support. Sonic. Enough said. But in all seriousness, Sonic is basically the go-to for any system that needs third-party entries. After Sega destroyed their own chances in the console market, it feels like they've been willing to license Sonic out to anyone. And something that I frequently see with a lot of new systems is that Sonic usually has an entry on them within a year of the system's release. During the Nintendo Switch presentation for January 2017, Sonic actually made a cameo during the video portion, though it wasn't until April that the game was properly revealed, so it's practically a given at this point. Admittedly though, this is where my speculation on third parties kinda hits shakier ground. With everyone else, it kind of feels like a sort of toss-up of what you can expect. Sometimes you'll get a port of a game that runs terribly on the Switch, and other times you'll have an exclusive game made for it, be it Final Fantasy or Resident Evil. But given how much video games have cost to make and how hard it can be to make some of them, I reckon we'll probably just be getting a few ports of the older installments in the series, with the newer content being saved for around year 3 or so. Now, onto the heavy hitters. Metroid has seen a massive resurgence in popularity ever since the release of Metroid Dread back in 2021, and the remaster of the original Metroid Prime back in early 2023. Though I'd say that the really big thing that everyone's hyped for is the release of Metroid Prime 4. Understand, for anyone that's been out of the loop, this game was announced back in June of 2017, in name only. And then 7 years later, back in June of 2024, during the Nintendo Direct, Metroid Prime 4's gameplay was revealed, and then a release date of 2025. Now, I'm probably wrong on this, but I have a theory that Metroid Prime 4 is actually being saved as a launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, similar to how Breath of the Wild was a launch title for the original Switch. But again, I don't know how much weight this theory carries. Despite its recent surge in popularity, Metroid is still a more niche Nintendo franchise, so to try and position it as a tentpole or some form of a system seller would be kind of odd, especially since it would take a second for the bigger franchises like Mario and Zelda to start making their rounds. Yeah, Mario Kart was the first game revealed for the Switch, but that doesn't mean it'll be the first one to release. The original Switch showed off Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario Odyssey as games that could be played on it, but those didn't release until after the system. Super Mario 3D Land was used to showcase the 3DS's capabilities, and that didn't come out for almost 8 months. While a shaky launch isn't the end for a console, at the same time though, the Switch 2 has a lot to prove because it's not an entirely new system. It's more of an updated version of the original Switch, and so it really needs that anchor to get itself off the ground. I mean, if you want to get really creative, you could throw Super Smash Bros. Into the mix, since Super Smash Bros. Melee came out less than a month after the GameCube. But it's also the only time Nintendo's done something like that, and plus, it wasn't even a launch title. But just like my theory, the skeptical side of me could also be wrong. So again, it's really a 50-50. Now, getting back on topic, we have Zelda. Zelda's probably going to get some kind of announcement for either later in the year or in one of the following years to come. Now, the reason I presume this is due to the fact that Nintendo stated that they are completely done with Breath of the Wild and that installment of the Zelda timeline, meaning that whatever comes next is going to be a completely new idea from scratch. And considering how long it took just to expand upon the existing universe that was already established, I feel like creating an entirely new one is definitely going to take some time. But as always, take this with a pinch of salt. And rounding out the trio, we have Pokemon. I definitely think they're going to announce a new generation for this year. It's already been 3 years since the previous generation, and Pokemon generations are usually 3 years apart, except for Gen 5, which had 2 sets of games. But otherwise, I'm not that big on Pokemon, so I don't have too much to say. Same for other franchises like Kirby and Animal Crossing. My sister is definitely a big fan of Animal Crossing, but that's aside from the point. Neither one really has a consistent schedule with releases, so it's kinda harder to track the two of them. But other than that, I'd say we're actually done with the speculation. So, without further ado, let's wrap up the video. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and tell me down in the comments section which of my predictions do you think are or aren't accurate, and why. Also, as a bonus question, tell me, what's your ideal lineup for the first round of games in Nintendo Switch 2? As always, subscribe today to join the A-list, and have a great day. Bye!